Hello everyone. In this video you'll witness a truly insane game played by 78-year-old Emil Diemer. His colorful appearance is far from the only thing you need to know about him. Emil was born in 1908. In 1931 he lost his job and joined the German Nazi Party. He attended all major international chess events and became a chess reporter for the German Reich. After World War II, he continued working in chess journalism, sold chess books, and gave simultaneous exhibitions. However, in 1953, he was expelled from the German Chess Federation, lost interest in chess, and became increasingly fascinated with Nostradamus. He claimed to have cracked Nostradamus's secret code, and over the course of 25 years, sent more than 10,000 letters on the topic. In 1965, he was admitted to a psychiatric clinic where he was banned from playing chess for 6 years due to mental instability. In 1971, that ban was lifted, and Emil even played in the National Club Championship. However, he continued to live in the clinic's post-stationary care unit for the rest of his life. Now, let's get to the game. This game was played in 1984, when Emil was already 78 years old. He played the white pieces, and Thomas Heiling played black. Judging by the level of play, both Emil and Thomas were playing at a master's strength for that time. Make sure to watch the entire game from beginning to end. I promise, you won't be disappointed. And so, the game begins with D4 by Emil. Black replies with F6, and then F3. Emil loved the move F3. He always aimed to push E4, often played the Emil Diemer Gambit and similar lines. Black responds with D6, and then E4 from white. White establishes a strong central presence with pawns. Black prepares to fianchetto their bishop, and G4 from white. The pawn storm on the king's side has already begun. Black fianchettos their bishop, and G5 from white, chasing the knight back. The knight retreats to D7, and F4 follows. That's the 6th pawn move in a row from white. White has complete control of the center, and black tries to undermine it with C5. This opens the long diagonal for the dark-squared bishop. But then comes the simple move D5. White locks down the center. Yes, it opens up the dark-squared bishop, but it's not critical. In this position, black realizes they also need to push some pawns and plays B5, a trap move, sacrificing the B5 pawn. But the pawn can't be taken. Capturing it allows a queen check on a 5, and white loses a piece. So, of course, Emil doesn't take it. Instead, he plays C3, placing a kind of wave breaker in front of black's bishop. Now the pawn on B5 is really under threat. Black reinforces it with a 6, but Emil responds with H4. White's pawns keep marching down the board. Next comes H5, maybe even H6, completely locking black's kingside in a vice. Black plays B6, trying to finally develop, but H5 keeps coming. The pawn storm doesn't stop. Now black really doesn't want to take it. If they do, the queen might jump to H5 and their structure will collapse. So instead, black decides to challenge white's center with CXD5. But already on move 11, Emil plays H6, driving the bishop back to F8. The bishop retreats, and Emil switches to the queen side with a 4. He's already pushed to the limit on the king side. Now he turns to the other side. The pawn on B5 starts to feel the pressure. Thomas Heiling tries to break white's center by capturing on D5, but not so fast. Emil shuts everything down again with a 5. The knight steps back to D7, and white recaptures the pawn on D5. That pawn on D5 is a monster. It controls the C6 square. The knight on B8 is miserable, nowhere to go. White dominates the center, and even the computer gives white a clear advantage. So black tries to get out by activating their bishop, preparing a breakthrough with F6. But Emil keeps going on the queen side with C4. Black plays F6, threatening to take on G5, but white captures on B5. And after black takes on G5, it looks like they can finally breathe. But Emil has different plans. He ignores it all and pushes f5, sacrificing it. It's brilliant, leaving Black's bishop stuck and useless. Black should have castled here. That was their only chance. But instead they captured the pawn on f7. And after 17 pawn moves in a row, White's queen jumps to h5+. The king steps to f8. And finally, White develops their first real piece, the queen. Then comes nf3, and the position starts to look dangerous for Black. The pawn on g5 is hanging, and the Black king feels very uncomfortable. Black brings a rook to defend, but Emil switches sides again, b6. A dangerous passed pawn, supported and strong. Now, Black targets the d5 pawn with their bishop on b7. White develops nc3, protecting it. Black plays nf6, attacking the queen, and like thunder from a clear sky, Emil captures on g5 with the knight, sacrificing his queen. Black takes the queen, but here comes the twist, na6+, forking the king and queen. The king moves. White takes on d8. And now Black's knight counterattacks with a fork of its own on g3. White calmly captures the bishop on b7. Black takes the rook on h1. At this point, Emil is down the exchange, but his positional initiative is everything. White plays bf4, creating pressure. Black defends with rg6, and now, on move 27, Emil castles queenside. He's ready to bring his rook into play. Black plays nf2, but that only helps Emil. re1, pinning the bishop. King moves to d7, and now comes another wild move. The knight sacrifice on b5. If Black takes it, it's checkmate in a few moves. So they don't. Instead, na4, blocking the attack. But Emil's not done. rx5, another sacrifice. If Black captures, it's over. So Black avoids it, plays rg1, pinning the bishop. White unpins, Black trades on f1, takes on b5. But White activates the rook along the g-file. Black's king steps to c8, attacking the knight. But the knight captures on d6. And after trades, White's bishop dominates on d6. Black's position collapses. The knight finally develops on move 36. Too late. White replies with a check from the rook on g8. The Black king retreats to b7, protecting the rook on a8, but White calmly plays rook to g7. Now the pawn on h7 is hanging, and so is the knight on d7. Both are under threat. Black decides to repeat the position, hoping for a draw by repetition, but White ignores the draw and captures the pawn on h7. Black takes the a5 pawn, and finally the rook on a8 makes its first move, but it's too little too late. Here comes pawn to b7, a brilliant knockout punch by Emil Diemer. This pawn must be captured or White will promote a queen. Black is forced to give up the knight on d7 to capture the new queen. Then comes king to c8, attacking the rook. And then another rook sacrifice, this time with rook to h7. It's the final nail in the coffin for the Black king. If the rook is captured, the b pawn promotes again. Black gives a desperate check from the a file, but it leads nowhere. White plays king to c2. Black takes the rook on d7 and White promotes the pawn anyway. Black might grab the bishop, but then comes check. King to e5 and then d6. The final crushing blow. At this point, Black finally resigns. The White b pawn is unstoppable. The position is completely lost. So, how do you like that game? Personally, I think it's one of the wildest and most brilliant games I've ever seen. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more fascinating chess content coming your way. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.